Eric already gave a bunch of ground rules, so I'm not going to go over our ground rules because they're pretty much similar. I'd love if you would participate so that I'm not talking at you for an hour and a half. But again, I understand that you have calls and you have clients and you have all sorts of things going on. So yes, please take care of yourself. If you are going to share a story, I just ask that you share something of light to medium intensity so that we don't trigger anybody or trigger yourself or have anything like that happen. So light to medium intensity stories. If you have a question, feel free to type it in the chat or come online with the audio. We are going to have a breakout room, but with the number of people here, we'll probably just break all of you into one room so that you can chat in there during one of our breakout sessions. And yeah, why are we here? So this workshop, The Importance of Values and Saying No, is all about discovering those things that are most important to you, and then using those values, using those things that are most important to you to say no in a different way. And the work that we're going to be doing is based on a gentleman named William Ury. He wrote a book called The Power of a Positive No. And the second half of our workshop will be on that. The first half is on values, and we've drawn this in from some of the work of Brene Brown, some values organizations that are online, and some other research. In order to get started, we are going to ground ourselves a little bit, and we're going to do that with something called box breathing. And box breathing is used everywhere from counselors to snipers in the army and on SWAT teams and things like that. It's a way of calming your body, centering your body, and being present. And one of my favorite ways of using box breathing is exactly what we're doing in this workshop. You've all come from a day where you may have had difficult clients, difficult interactions with your family. You may have been busy and just got here on time. So we're going to take a few minutes now to just center ourselves and be present for the rest of the workshop. And the way box breathing works is if you think about a box in front of you, the first thing we're going to do is you are going to breathe in for a count of 4 and think about going up the side of the box. And then once you have that breath, you're going to hold that breath for a count of 4. Then you're going to release the breath for a count of 4. And then you're going to hold your breath empty for a count of 4. And we're going to continue going around the box for 3 minutes. And please, for your count of 4, do a count that you are comfortable with the breathing in, the holding, the breathing out, and the holding empty. At no point in this should you feel stressed out or like you're short of breath or uncomfortable in any way. All right, so I'm going to count you through the first couple of cycles, and then I will go quiet so that I can ground myself and make myself present for the rest of the workshop, and then we'll jump in. So if you want to just get comfortable in your chair, whatever that means for you. If you feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can close your eyes. If you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, try and find a non-screen to look at while you're doing this. So a wall with some, just paint on it, no pictures, nothing like that. Your desk if it's blank. But we want to have kind of a soft gaze if we're not going to close our eyes so that we're not focusing on a screen of any kind. And so once you're in that position, you're going to breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. And hold empty. 1, 2, 3, 4. And continue that cycle. So breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold empty. 1, 2, 3, 4. and continue for the next couple of minutes. Okay, you can finish whatever cycle you're on. I'll give you a second. You've been sitting for a long time today. Shake out your arms, stand up for a second if you want, shake out your legs. And if you have any thoughts on that 4-square breathing, feel free to put them in the chat, or if you want to unmute and share your thoughts on it, that would be great. How did it feel to take 3 minutes to just breathe like that? Yeah, Erica says it felt great.
Visualizing that box was really helpful in that having something to focus on mentally as well that coincided with the breathing was really nice and grounding.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, the visualizing the box and the counting are actually there because it's harder for us to let thoughts come in when we're doing that visualization or counting. I know when I try to meditate, I always struggle with what's going on in my day and thoughts I'm having coming in and intruding in that meditation. But with box breathing, because of that counting and that visualization, I can actually clear my head. So thank you, Charlotte. This is a great tool for switching roles, I find. So if you have been working with a client and you know you have to go and meet with a supervisor, taking a few minutes to box breathe and kind of mentally transition yourself from client serving advocate to talking to my supervisor. I use it at the end of the day before my son comes home. I'll box breathe for a few minutes to switch from my work at RAFT to being a dad. And it helps me be a lot more present with my son by breaking up the different roles in my life using box breathing. A lot of advocates also tell us that they'll use it after a very difficult conversation or a very difficult client or something has gone wrong to kind of recenter themselves so that they can focus and go on with their day. And Crystal says it's relaxing. Excellent. That's what I'm hoping. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do in this workshop is we're going to do an exercise to help you find your core values. And you had a link sent to you in the email, but I'm also going to put that link in the chat in case you need to grab the workbook so that you can see these values. Or if you have another system that you use for exploring your core values, you could use that as well. But what we want to do is the exercise that you're going to find in that workbook takes longer than we have today. We're going to take about 10 minutes to do this, but it's in there so that if you want to explore this more later on, you can do the full exercise. But for today, what we're going to do is, first of all, before we jump into the activity, I'd love to hear either again in the chat or coming on audio, how would you define a core value? What does that mean to each of you? Has anyone done a core value exercise before? All right, well, here's the definition that we use. So the definition that we use, and there are lots of different definitions out there, we use values are any idea or theme that is important enough to you that it affects how you think, how you act, and how you feel. Other definitions are values can be foundations of laws, customs, and tradition. So you may have values embedded in your culture. You may have them embedded in your faith, things like that. They reflect your sense of right and wrong. They influence your attitudes and behaviors. They can give your life purpose, meaning, and passion. Yeah, and Erica says, I believe core values are the things that are most important to you. Yeah, and the difference between some values and core values is core values are the ones that are always important to you. There can be different things that are important to you in different times of a day or different times of a week, but the core values are the ones that you always come back to and are like a piece of yourself. And if you go against those core values, you really feel it. You can almost feel it physically, like you didn't stick to your values. So the core values are the ones that are unchanging. I do this exercise about once a year to see if things have changed for me. And my top 4 are still the same after doing this exercise for almost 10 years. They just don't shift. They always come out as the most important. And that shows me that those are really the core of my being. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 10 minutes and there's a big list of values in the workbook. What you're going to do is we're going to take 10 minutes and you are going to look at that list. And what you're doing is you're just looking for an initial instant reaction that word resonates with you. So don't take the time to think about them. Just go through and whichever words resonate with you, circle them if you printed out the PDF or write them down on a piece of paper and just scan through that list really fast and just grab the ones that resonate with you instantly and the most. Then take that list and look at it and try and narrow it down from however many you had down to 10 values of however many you circled that feel like they resonate the most. Now you're going to look at that list of 10 and further try break it down into your top 5. And like I said, the exercise has more steps for this. So if you want to go back and do this after, I really encourage it. It really goes deeper into doing this exercise, but with an hour-and-a-half presentation, we're going to speed it up a bit. And once you have the 5 that seem most important, try and rank them in order of importance from 1 to 5. Any questions? All right, looks like we're good. So big list, initially circle as many of them that seem important, try and narrow that down to 10, try and narrow that down to 5, and then rank your 1 to 5 values. And we're going to take 10 minutes. So I'm going to go on mute while you all do that. And I will see you back here in 45 minutes after the hour. So 11:45 for me, which I think is 2:45 for all of you. So yeah, we'll see you in 10 minutes. All right. Hopefully you've had time to get down to 5, and if possible, rank them. If not, that's okay. If you're still struggling to get it down to 5, just feel free for the next activity to just use the top 5 that you wrote down, or however you want to do it if you haven't managed to get it down to 5. So for me, there's another activity in the handout to take those 5 and break them down into a core value statement that is easy to remember. And so for me, my top values are security, family, adventure, loyalty, and support. So those are my 5. But I've taken my top 3, security, family, and adventure, and I've created a core value statement, which is to provide the security my family needs to have amazing adventures together. And so that's my core value statement. And the way that I use that core value statement is when I'm making big decisions in my life or important decisions in my life, I use that core value statement as a filter. And so, for example, when Erica asked me to do this presentation, it was in the middle, not in the middle, near the end of my vacation for spring break with my family. And so we're still off until Monday. And so I looked at my core value statement. I said, okay, is this presentation going to interfere with me spending time with my family? Is this presentation going to interfere with our ability to have adventures together? And how is it going to affect our security? Well, this is my job, so it actually helps with my family's security because I get paid and it helps us pay for those adventures. My son is volunteering at a climbing camp this morning, so he wasn't around anyways. And my wife is out walking the dog. And so when I looked at that and used my core value statement, I said yes to Erica, because with it being COVID this year, we weren't really able to go away on a vacation. Now, if it hadn't have been a COVID year and we could have gone away on a vacation, I probably would have talked to Erica about another time. Because in that case, we would have been away from my home, we would have been doing something every day, and it wouldn't have fit with my core value statement. I would have been taken away from that family time and that adventure. But this year it worked out, and I was able to come and present today. So that's an example of how you can use your core values to help you make decisions, to help you look at different situations in your life, all of those things. Any questions on that, either in the chat or if you want to come on the audio? All right. Well, what we're going to do now, and I hope maybe you feel a bit more chatty in your breakout room, is Alexandra is going to shift you into breakout rooms. And what I'd love you to do is to share your top 3 to 5 core values with the group and talk about why they're important to you. This is another step in the activity where you talk about your values, and it helps you kind of solidify why they're important. And once you know why they're important, it helps you with that decision-making process even more. So, Alexandra, if you want to set up those breakout rooms now, we're going to take 10 minutes for everyone to share with the other people in their group. And I'm going to hang out here so that you can all just talk with each other. And so you should see a box that pops up with a breakout room. And you can just click on join and it will take you to that breakout room. And you'll have 10 minutes to talk about your top values with everybody. So Alexander, we can just bring them back at top of the hour.
All right, sounds good.
Right. Whenever you're ready, Alexandra.
Sorry, I missed that. What you said?
Whenever you're ready.
All right, awesome. I'll go ahead and bring them back then.
Excellent. I think that's everybody. So we did start a little late, and I want to try and get everybody out of here on time. So I would just love it if anyone is interested, if you would like to share your top 3 to 5 values in the chat, just real quick. Or if anyone wants to share how that exercise was. How was sharing your values with other people? You can either do that in the chat or come online on the audio. And then we're going to move on to the next part of the workshop. So Charlotte says, trust, growth, empathy, justice, and love. Nice. All right, well, you can type those in the chat if you would like, and I'll say them out loud when I see them. But now we're going to move on to the next part of the workshop, which is the work of, as I said, William Ury, U-R-Y, and his book, The Power of a Positive No. And William Ury was an international negotiator. And so during his time as a negotiator in very difficult situations, he came up with a new method of saying no. That is called the positive no, or a yes, no, yes. But before we jump into that, William Ury has an interesting way of categorizing the ways that we are currently saying no without actually saying no. And he calls these the 3 A's. And so as I read these out, I want you to think about yourself and see if you identify with any of these categories in how you are currently saying no without just saying no to somebody. And so the first one is to accommodate. So instead of saying no, we accommodate. And this results in a loss of our power because we're making an accommodation for somebody else. The second way is avoid. And avoid means that instead of saying no, you just avoid the person. So you see the person walking down the hall and you duck into the bathroom so that you don't even have to talk to them. All right. Or they're sending you texts and you just don't reply to the texts or the emails. So you're avoiding that person. That is another way of saying no. And in this case, if you're avoiding, you lose your power and you risk losing the relationship. And then the third way of saying no is to attack. So instead of saying no, you attack the person. And this causes a loss of relationship. So we have accommodating, attacking, and avoiding. And I don't know if any of you see yourselves in these, but I actually had a big lesson to learn in that I found out through William Ury's research and some of the other work that we've done that one form of attacking is using logic when you're arguing with someone who's feeling emotional. And I am a logic fighter with my wife. And so although I was not overtly being violent or attacking her or yelling or shouting, when we would have a disagreement, I would go into logic mode and start presenting facts and start saying, well, 3 months ago you said this, and those sorts of things. And that's actually a form of attacking instead of just saying no to what she was asking me to say no to. And so I've really had to be aware of that because it was damaging our relationship. And I actually do all three of these. So I will tend to, I go through a cycle. So I will accommodate. And then once I'm tired of accommodating, I will then avoid and just try not pay attention to the situation. And then if I'm continuing to be pressed, I'll attack. So I actually have a cycle I go through that since I've started this work, I can identify and I can try and break that cycle. So I'd be interested if anyone wants to share in the chat which of those you see yourself as. Are you an accommodator, an attacker, an avoider? Are you two of them? Are you three of them? How, when you're asked to do something, instead of saying no, are you responding to people? Yeah, Crystal says, I do all three. Erica's, I'm an avoider. Yeah, and just going back to the values exercise, Charlotte said it was a great activity to try and self-reflect and then following conversation with others about what they meant. To me, really helped, yeah. And you can, if you do this activity and I'm not sure if all of you are from different organizations today or not, but if you go back to your organization and feel free to take this workbook with you, you can actually do this as an organization and you can learn a lot about the people that you work with by understanding their core values. It can really show you how they're reacting the way that they're reacting, how you approach talking with them, things that you'll ask them to do and things that you won't ask them to do. One of the easiest examples of that is if one of their core values is faith, and it's probably really important not to ever ask them to work extra time or extra shifts during their religious day, right? And being aware of what their day for their faith is. Most of them fall into Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but maybe not all of them. So just being aware of that can really help that relationship in your organization. Yeah. And then, yeah, I do all three. I'm an avoider. Bria says she's all three. Charlotte, accommodation or avoidance. Yeah. So what we want to do is be able to use these terms to identify this in ourselves. And just start to be aware of when we're doing it. That's a really easy first step. Not easy. It's a simple first step that is not always easy. And so just learning to be aware of when you're accommodating or avoiding, when you're, being aware of when you're attacking, that's a good first step. And then what you can do is instead of accommodating, avoiding, or attacking, you can use what William Ury calls a yes, no, yes. And so before I teach this next part, what I'd like you to do is just think of a recent scenario where you said yes to somebody when what you really wanted to do was say no to them. And instead of saying no, you either said yes or you accommodated, avoided, or attacked. And so I'm just going to give you a minute quick here to think of that scenario. And then as I teach the yes, no, yes, I want you to try to apply this formula to that scenario to see how that scenario would have turned out differently if you use this new method of saying no. All right. All right, so hopefully everyone has a scenario in mind. And so I'm just going to type this in the chat. It's in your workbook, but I'm going to type it in the chat as well. And so the yes, no, yes formula is yes, exclamation mark, no period, yes, question mark. And so the first thing we're going to do is talk about the yes, exclamation mark. And so in his years of experience and his research, William Ury found out that one of the reasons that it can be tough to say no is because we don't take time to ground ourselves in what we're protecting. So what is that no protecting? And the most powerful way to say no is to link that no back to your core values. Now, it could be something else important, like a child's graduation or an important dinner with family or a medical appointment. You could use those as your yes. But if you can link your yes, your first yes, to your core values, then it's going to be easier to say no and easier to stick to that no. So the first yes is start with what you are for, not what you're against. So what are you protecting in yourself? What are you trying to say yes to in your life before you even think about saying no? So it's not about being in opposition to somebody else. It's about being with yourself and supporting yourself with this first yes. So for example, a few years ago, my wife wanted, one of our cars died, and she wanted to get a brand new car. And I'm the budgeter and the person that handles the money in our relationship. And I knew that we didn't really have enough money to buy a new car. And so I grounded my first yes in my value for security. All right. And so it would sound something like, I'm saying yes to us staying on budget and being financially secure. And so that's my first yes. That's what I'm protecting. That's what I'm grounding myself in before I say no. Right? So if you have a question on that, you can come on the audio or type it in the chat, but take a moment to think of that scenario that you came out with, where you said yes when you wanted to say no, and think about what you would have been protecting or what you were standing for if you had have said no. I'll just give you a minute to think through that. And if you want to type that yes statement in the chat, that's great. So mine was, so that was my yes statement. Then you want to come up with your no statement. And the no can be as simple as just writing no. Good. Erica says, I'm saying yes to my creativity. Bria, I am saying yes to my peace. Nice. Then you're going to say no. And the no could just be no. Or it can be helpful when you're thinking about this to write out what you're saying no to. So in my example, it is, I'm saying no to buying a new car. So that's my no. All right. So my yes is I'm saying yes to our budget and being financially secure. So I'm saying no to buying a new car. And by saying the no and linking it to what you're saying a no to, it just gives you clarity instead of just saying no. And it gives clarity to the other person. So it might be, I am saying yes. Yeah, okay, so Erica's got, I'm saying no to doing anyone's hair on the weekend. So Erica's yes is I'm saying yes to my creativity. So I'm saying no to doing anyone's hair on the weekend. Perfect. The important part here is that sometimes this will end the formula. Sometimes there is no second yes. We'll talk about the second yes in a second, but sometimes there is no second yes. So especially for all of you and a lot of the clients you work with, right? somebody might be saying yes to their safety and their wellness. So they're saying no to staying in a relationship with their abuser. There is no second yes for that abuser. They're just saying no to them. And so I just want to be clear there that this second yes is optional. Okay, so take a second and craft your no statement. Share it in the chat if you'd like. Thank you, Erica. Okay. The last part of the formula, the yes question mark, is offering another positive outcome to the person that is not a compromise or an accommodation. The second yes has to be something that you are 100% willing to do. Right? So it's not an accommodation, it's not a compromise, it's something that you are happy to do. It's a positive outcome that makes you feel good to offer it to that person. All right, and so Crystal has hers here. I'm saying yes to going to the park. I'm saying no to staying more than 2 hours. Perfect. Okay, now Crystal, if you can then think about what value going to the park is protecting for you, that first yes will become even stronger. Going to the park is great. That's something that's important to you. But if you can come up with the value that that's protecting or that you're standing for, then that yes will be even stronger and you'll be more likely to stick to your no. Okay, so I'm saying no to staying more than 2 hours. Perfect. So in my example, I'm saying yes to our budget and our financial security. So I'm saying no to buying a new car. And the second yes that I offered my wife was, but we have some money in a savings account. Let's buy a secondhand car. And I was 100% good with that. I knew that we could afford it. I knew that it fit in the budget. And I felt really good about offering that to her. Okay. So in the situation that you have, this scenario in your head, take a second to think if there was a second yes. And then if you want to type it in the chat, feel free, but come up with that second yes if there is one. And if there isn't one, that's fine. There you go. So Erica now has her complete yes, no, yes statement. So Erica is saying yes to her creativity. So she's saying no to doing anyone's hair on the weekend, but she's saying yes to, she is willing to help with hairstyles on Friday after work. So that's great. So before, when somebody asked Erica to do their hair on the weekend, she might have felt pressured to say no, but then the person kind of pressed her. And so she ended up saying yes. She ended up working on the person's hair on the weekend. And in the end, she didn't feel great about that. And so now in that same situation, instead of just feeling like you have to say no, you have a conversation that you're starting with the person and you're letting them know why you're saying no. So when you speak the yes, no, yes formula, you actually speak your yes to the person. Then you speak your no, and then you give them the second yes. And that person, what that does is it makes that person realize, one, that you really took the time to think about it because you developed this yes, no, yes statement. So you're not just saying no to them for the sake of saying no, right? So you're showing them that you took time to think about it. You're telling them why it's important to you to say no. And then you're giving them another option if there is one. Right? Yeah. So Eric said then she was sad she couldn't do her art or crafts. Yeah. So it was taking up important time for you. And now Crystal's got hers. So where are we starting here? She's saying yes to going to the park, but saying no to staying more than 2 hours. However, we can go back on Saturday and stay longer. And so hopefully you can see in delivering that yes, no, yes, how it's helping that other person to understand you more and be more open to accepting that no and not pushing back on it. Now, what can happen is once you're talking to somebody who also has this tool in their toolbox is, or you can even just listen for their yes, no, yes, if they're talking back. So I went to my wife and I said, I'm saying yes to our budget and our financial security. So no, we can't afford a new car and we're not going to get a new car, but we have money in the bank. We can get a secondhand car. Now, my wife doesn't use this tool the same way I do, but I can listen to her and hear the tool in her response. And so, but what she basically said to me was, well, I'm saying yes to my safety because I drive 35 minutes to work every day on icy roads in the winter. So I'm saying no to a secondhand car because I don't feel safe. And then her yes was actually the first yes she gave. So I really need to say yes to a new car so I feel safe. And so once she told me that and said yes, she's saying yes to her safety, I realized that her need for that car trumped my response to the car. And so I went back into our budget and I looked at it and I found some extra money and we set it up so that we could afford monthly payments and we got a new car. And because we had this tool to use, instead of me just saying no and walking away and her feeling like I had just brushed her off, I had explained my important yes. She explained her important yes. And I realized that her yes was more important than my yes. And so together we figured out a new third yes, right? Or a new second yes. So in the end, we crafted a statement together, which was we're saying yes to her feelings of safety and our budget by buying a base model of the car. And that was our solution. So we came together and found a solution using the yes, no, yes. Any questions on that? So you can either teach this to other people so that you can both use the tool, or you can just learn to listen for other people's yes exclamation mark and yes question mark, and then have that ongoing conversation instead of just ending it with a no. Anybody having troubles with this that would like to come on the audio and workshop it with me a bit, or has a question? Anyone having doubts about this tool? Or thoughts on how great it is?
Jeremy, I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you then stay committed, right? So I can say that, I want to use my weekends for my creativity and do my thing, and I offer up this other time, and the other person, can't agree with that, or they don't.
Yep.
Or they're saying like this, whatever their issue is like completely dire. But it's something you want to say no to. So how do you stick to your guns?
Yeah, so we didn't quite get into it, but William Ury has what's called a plan B. And so you create a plan B to back up your yes, no, yes. And that plan B is something that you can follow through on, whether that person accepts your no or not. And so for you, it might be your plan B is if that person doesn't accept your no, then you just won't see that person on the weekends because you know they're going to pressure you to do their hair, even though you already said no. And a plan B can be really tough to come up with and stick to, exactly like you're saying. So I would say the other part there is to always go back to your yes exclamation mark and remind yourself of what you're protecting. And in some cases, like it was with my wife, if you listen for that other person's yes exclamation mark, you may decide that this one time you're going to say yes, you're going to be flexible, right? So they might come to you and say, you know, I want my hair done. And you give your yes, no, yes. And they're like, okay, but I'm going to a wedding on Sunday and my hair is a disaster. And I really want to look good for this wedding because it's somebody in my family and I want to feel confident and I want to feel, you know, able to be there. And you might go, wow, you know, their yes for confidence and feeling good about themselves and self-esteem, this time that actually trumps my yes of protecting my creativity. So I'm going to help them with their hair this time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But if they just want their hair done because they're busy Friday afternoon and they want to inconvenience you for the weekend, then you need to say no. And if they push back, you know, just ground yourself in that yes and think about, okay, what were the crafts I was going to do this weekend? Right? And I'm not a crafty person. You know, I was going to scrapbook just from my vacation, or I was going to, you know, put together a shadow box of some of my favorite things from my past, whatever that important craft is, and then ground your no in that and use that to help you stick to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you know that that person will continue to pressure you over the weekend, then your plan B might just be that you don't engage with that person on the weekend.
Okay.
And that's tough. I'm not saying any of this is easy, but this helps the process of delivering that no. And you might find that as you do this, fewer people pressure that no because you've told them why it's important at the start. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. And there's even another section in William Urie's book that we don't go into that is about people will basically go through a similar pattern of the 7 stages of grief once you start saying no to them. And he kind of gives tips on how to deal with each of those steps.
Man, we might have to bring you back for that one.
Yeah, well, and so the very first workshop that we teach is on boundaries. And so it goes along with this workshop with values and saying no. Our third workshop is on building shame resilience. And so that's about then how to use tools so that when you do say no to somebody, you don't feel guilt or shame about doing it. And then our fourth workshop is about using your strengths in decision making, which backs all of this up. So they kind of there is more here to build on all of this. This is kind of that snippet that we had for today. Organization, and I see we're getting close to time here. Organizationally, this can be a great tool if you teach everybody on your team and you actually use this formula with each other. Because then, you know, as a supervisor, if I say, you know, hey, Erica, I need you to work this weekend. You could then say, okay, well, remember that workshop we had? I'm not going to say no to you right now, but I need 10 minutes, 15 minutes to go away and think about my yes, no, yes. And then I'll come back and we'll talk. And so it's a way to stop the pattern that we've fallen into in our lives of all of us expecting immediate responses, when really we all should have the right to take a second to think about it, maybe call, you know, our family and check in on them and see what they think. And then when you go back and you deliver the yes, no, yes, your supervisor gives their yes, no, yes, you can have a conversation using the tool. And it takes a lot of charge, negative charge out of having these conversations because everybody in the organization knows the tool and are using the tool to have these kind of conversations. Yeah, Crystal says it's helpful. Charlotte says, yeah, really appreciate your note about there doesn't have to be a second yes. Yeah, it's very important to remember that. Yeah, especially, yeah, so committing to yourself and your value, right? Don't give that second yes if there's not something that you can do that makes you value yourself. If you feel like that second yes is going to counter you valuing yourself, then there is no second yes. You just need to deliver that no. And the second yes could be a lot later. It doesn't have to be immediate, right? I'm saying yes to spending time with my family this weekend. So no, I cannot work extra shifts this weekend. But start of next month, my family's going away to see someone and I'm not going. So I'm free to work that weekend if you would like. So the second yes doesn't have to be an immediate response either. It could be further down the road. All right, any other questions? Thoughts on this tool? I know we're right at time here, so I want to be aware of everybody's time.
Does anyone have any questions or comments or things for Jeremie before we close out?
The last thing I'll say is it's good to start using the yes, no, yes in less important relationships or less difficult conflicts. So it's kind of a baby step. And it sounds silly, but we did a workshop in Alabama. And on day 2, after this, we taught this, the lady came back and she's like, I used the yes, no, yes last night. I went to McDonald's and the person asked me if I wanted to upsize my meal. And I didn't say it out loud to them, but in my head, I'm saying yes to staying on track with my eating habits. So I'm going to say no to upselling or upgrading my meal to a larger size. And so she said no to the person just by having that quick mental conversation. And so it can help to use this tool in easier situations and build up to those tougher conversations. All right, sorry, Erica, that's my last piece.
You're fine, Jeremie. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this presentation. It's been very helpful. Just to let everyone know as we close out, I have just one announcement to make, and then I'll turn it over to Alexandra to do the closing announcements. This is our last self-care webinar until June. We'll pick back up in June, but May is our conference month, so we're going to be busy planning the conference and making sure that we keep a pretty clear schedule for that. We know a lot of people are planning on attending, so we don't want to overwhelm you with trainings and webinars and things. So we will put self-care on a hiatus. Not physically, because we still want you to take these things back to your organizations and still do them. But we are just going to pause the webinars until June, and we'll pick back up then. You all will continue to get emails from us as reminders of upcoming webinars that are scheduled, and we may invite Jeremie back to do some of those other ones he talked about because they feel like they connect well to the one that he's doing today, and it might be useful to connect them all. So thank you, Jeremie. I am now turning it over to Alexandra.
Thank you, Erica, and thank you so much, Jeremie, again for your time and for sharing all of this really great information with us. I'm sure all of us can use this in our organizations and in our personal lives as well. For everybody else who participated, please complete the evaluation form that I dropped in the chat. It is required to complete this evaluation form to receive your certificate at the end of the webinar series, and NC CASA uses this feedback to help shape our future training. So we really appreciate any feedback that you have about the training. And if you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to contact myself, or you can contact Erica or anybody at NC CASA. We can get you connected with the right person.
Thank you, Alexandra. And again, thank you, Jeremie. Jeremie, we will be in touch. I will email you following this presentation. Thank you so much for taking the time during your vacation. Tell everyone we said hello, and we hope you have a great time still, even though COVID has hindered some of your adventures.
We will.
Thank you all for attending. I appreciate that. And we will be talking with you soon.
Yeah, and if anyone's interested beyond what Erica organizes for bringing any of these workshops to your organization, you can just send an email to info@raftcares.org and our outreach team will be in contact.
And I'll type that into the chat. info@raftcares.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.